confidence and trust the people of Ohio have placed in me. As we go forward together, may God bless Ohio and this great nation and help guide us in our shared commitment to a better future. Thank you for listening. Mr. President, I yield the floor and note the absence of quorum.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Minority Leader, yeah.
Mr. President, I'd say to my friend from Ohio, I listened with great interest to his first speech here in the Senate and was particularly interested in his reference to Robert A. Taft, who the senator from Ohio knows his portrait is in the Republican leader's office and has been there for some time. In fact, that space that's currently the office of the Republican leader in the Senate became the space of the Republican leader about the time that Senator Taft was in that all-too-brief period. He was actually only majority leader for about 8 months before he passed away, but he left an incredible impression here in this town, which the junior senator from Ohio pointed out. And I would say in listening to the new senator from Ohio that he is entirely able to fill the shoes of those who have come before representing the great state of Ohio in the Senate. He made reference to some of them. I predict by the time the senator from Ohio leaves this body, he'll be widely referred to in the same category. I thank him for his important first contribution here in the Senate.
Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I joined the Republican leader in congratulating Senator Portman on his first speech on the Senate floor. I remember those days some 4 years ago when I had the honor of doing that. I know that how close Rob and Jane are and their children, and I seen them much over the last year, and I know the sacrifice and difficulty of leaving home, as he points out, and I know he feels that way about his family. And Senator, I look forward to this relationship. I look forward already to what we've been working to do, especially on manufacturing jobs. Senator Portman has visited, as he said, some 80 manufacturing plants in the last 3 years, and he sees what I see on these shop floors, that if we keep these jobs in the United States, these manufacturing jobs, the innovation is done, much of it on the shop floor, and we'll continue to lead the world in innovation, continue to lead the world in job creation. That's the importance of working with small and medium-sized and large manufacturing companies. And I also would add that Senator Portman already understands that Ohio is the home of 2 major federal installations. Case is NASA Glenn in Cleveland, and the part of the state I live in, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, near Dayton, in the part of the state that Senator Portman lives in, and also the Battelle Memorial Institute in Columbus, while not a federal agency per se, serves much of the federal government by running the country's energy labs. And the synergism among those 3, coupled with Ohio State and in Case Western, I met today with President Williams of the University of Cincinnati in Senator Portman's hometown, in the kind of synergism that comes out of this, and innovation and high-end manufacturing and all the kinds of things that he and Senator Portman and I will do together on job creation, whether it's USEC in Southern Ohio or energy or the solar industry in Toledo or the auto industry in the north or the aerospace industry, especially in Southwest, but throughout the state. The kind of work we do will absolutely matter to put people back to work and create the kinds of good-paying industrial jobs and good-paying other jobs that Ohioans aspire to, that create a strong, vibrant middle class. I congratulate Senator Portman. I yield the floor. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Ohio Senator Rob Portman delivering his first speech on the Senate floor. His committee assignments, Armed Services Committee, Energy and Natural Resources, Homeland Security, and also the Senate Budget Committee. Senators continuing consideration of the Small Business Research Bill. A couple of the amendments on the legislation, one would repeal tax reporting requirement enacted as part of the 2010 health care law, and another would bar the EPA from regulating greenhouse gas emissions. Funding for the federal government runs out on Friday, and the Senate is expected to take up another temporary spending measure to avoid a government shutdown. The House passed it earlier this week. Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who we saw on the floor just a couple minutes ago, said that while he'll support a 3-week temporary spending measure in a vote this week, any further legislation to fund the government will have to include the $500 billion plus Pentagon budget. The Kentucky Republican also said House GOP leaders have assured him that any future government funding bill, whether it's a full-year measure or another stopgap measure, will contain that defense money. On the other side of the Capitol, the House is debating whether to end the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. The program provides funds to local governments to buy and redevelop foreclosed and abandoned homes. A final vote on that is expected later today. And a bill that would bar federal funding of National Public Radio is expected to come to the floor of the House tomorrow. The bill would also prohibit the use of federal funds to acquire radio content. The Associated Press writing that the stars of Sesame Street, the real people, not the Sesame Street characters, are on Capitol Hill helping unions and activist groups protest proposed federal spending cuts to public broadcasting. The actors were helping deliver petitions asking the Senate to fully fund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which helps pay for Sesame Street and other programming.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me ask unanimous consent to dispense with the quorum.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank all of my colleagues for really helping us to focus on this debate yesterday and today. We started discussing the reauthorization of the SBIR and STTR programs within the Small Business Administration. Senator Snowe has been on the floor most of the day yesterday and part of the day today as we manage this bill. As I've said many times, this particular bill is this particular program is the federal government's largest research program for small business. And it was started in 1982 by a bipartisan group of senators and House members that believed that small businesses in America had something to contribute in the technological and scientific advancements in this country. And they were right. And they said the federal government spends billions of dollars every year on research and development, yet some of our most promising small businesses, maybe independent scientists or researchers or engineers or inventors of all different backgrounds and persuasions, couldn't really get in the front door of the Department of Defense or NIH. In those days, people only wanted to see people from big companies. Well, not only was that not allowing small business an opportunity, but, Mr. President, it was shortchanging the taxpayer, because what taxpayers want is the best technology. It doesn't matter to them whether it comes from a small shop down the street operating on the second floor, you know, above a donut shop, like my father got started many years ago, or whether it comes from the back office of IBM. They just want the best, and they deserve it. This program delivers it. And so this is about innovation and jobs. And one thing that I want to stress again, several people have come down to the floor and said, why aren't we, I guess meaning Democrats, focused like a laser on closing the budget gap? Let me say this is an effort to close the budget gap and to reduce the debt and to close the annual deficit, because that can be done by cutting discretionary spending, cutting defense spending where it's wasteful and not effective, raising revenues where is appropriate, particularly for those making over $1 million a year would be a good place to start. And most importantly, or equally important to all the above, is creating an atmosphere so the private sector can get about the business of creating jobs. That's what this program does. That's why Senator Snowe and I are on the floor. That's why our committee voted this bill out 18-1. We know it's important. So to innovate, innovation creates jobs, and I want to show you just 3 examples as we're waiting for senators to come to the floor to talk about their amendments. I wanted to share one story. This is from Connecticut, and might I say that over the 20-plus years of this program, there have been small businesses in every state that have benefited either through grants or through contracts. The Department of Defense, which has about $1 billion of their research and development set aside for this purpose. Other departments call them grants. The Department of Defense actually enters into contracts with small businesses. Now, I'm not sure if this came out of the Department of Defense. It's not noted here, but one of our agencies thought it might be important to create a device to safely transport toxic chemicals. Now, I'm from Louisiana. We have a tremendous and are proud of our industrial base and petrochemicals. Some things we produce are really, really safe. Some things we produce are quite dangerous but necessary to undergird our economy. And so the transport of these toxic chemicals to do it safely is important. So one of the agencies, and I don't have exactly which one, identified a company in Connecticut that might be able to come up with some such device. They did. That particular company, which is now ATMI, paid more than 10 times in taxes now that that invention has been commercialized, as we can see here on this chart. But what people really need to know is this company paid more in 10 times in taxes that they received from the program. This is just one example. ATMI went from 40 employees to employing 800 people worldwide. Now, I'm hoping that their company is still located in Danbury, Connecticut, and I'm hoping that most of these 800 people are working in America. There is no requirement in this particular program for that to occur, and we wouldn't want to have that requirement because we're producing technology and innovation for America and for the world, and our people will benefit from it. But let's hope that that is the case, and that's just one example. A second example comes from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Senator Stabenow was on the floor earlier today, and I want to thank her so very much. She was a very strong supporter of our very important small business jobs and innovation bill in the last Congress. I'm pleased that the leadership has given our committee an opportunity to be on the floor with another important bill so early in this Congress. I think Leader Reid knows and feels strongly, as strongly as I do, that there are more ways to cut a deficit than the one being trumpeted on the other side of this Capitol. And it's not even a way because it won't work. And all we hear from the other chamber is cut discretionary spending and you'll get there. A, we won't get there, and B, we're going to shoot off both feet in the process of trying to go down that road, because it is a road to a dead end. You cannot get to where we want to go the way that some people are arguing. We can get to reducing our deficit, eliminating our debt, by doing all 4 of the things that I mentioned, and one of them is creating jobs and doing it in the private sector. This is a CyberNet ammo sorter. This did come from the Defense Department. When people ask, how can you save millions of dollars? Well, this particular invention has saved the government hundreds of millions of dollars in defense costs over 5 years. It started in Michigan, now is expanding to Florida. That will make Senator Nelson very happy. It was initially implemented at one of our camps in Kuwait. It's in support of Operation Freedom. It's now also in use at Fort Irwin, the National Training Center in the Mojave Desert, where troops train before deployment. It sorts ammunition in a way that saves our troops many, many man-hours and hundreds of millions of dollars. So there is another way to cut spending besides just slashing and burning some of the best programs in the world, literally. Some of the best programs in the world have been left on the chopping block, not just in America, in the world, have been left on the chopping block on the House of Representatives floor. I might suggest they think outside the box and they think of other ways to reduce spending, which is investing in smart investments that streamline operations, that create efficiencies and save taxpayers money and create jobs at the same time. Thus, companies can pay in more taxes at the local, state, and federal level, and we continue to get spending under control and reduce our deficit. So that is the CyberNet Systems Automatic Tactical Ammunition Classification System. Leave it to the Department of Defense to make up such a name. This is a Beacon Interactive Turbo Work out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. This technology created this company to help sailors keep the fleet safe through streamlined and uniformed maintenance. It will be going now into all 250 ships in the Navy. 4,600 sailors will use this technology developed out of the SBIR program every day to protect and preserve our warships. In its first full year of implementation, the software should give a 300% return on the initial SBIR investment. And Mr. President, you know this because you've been a very strong advocate nationally, not just in the state of Oregon, for small business. But you know that with a little investment at the right time, there can be a tremendous upside. And that's what you're seeing here in this program. Our initial grants are only $150,000. People might say, geez, you know, what can you do with $150,000? Well, $150,000 given to the scientist or the engineer or the inventor just at the right time can help provide that half year or year of research and development necessary to grow and to mobilize the technologies to develop it into something that really could work. And then Phase 2 comes in with the potential, if it looks inviting and exciting and interesting to the agency, they might award such a grantee another $150,000 Phase 2, and then it can go up to $1.5 million. And that's the way these companies or these ideas grow. Now, at some point, this program ceases to be necessary because what happens is it either becomes clear to the people managing it that that idea has failed, that that technology is not going to work, and the grant is simply shut down or the contract comes to an end, and yes, that money will be lost. But what often happens, not in every case, what often happens is that technology goes to such a phase that it becomes so promising that venture capitalists step in, like they should, and other investors step in and take that company way up. That's what happened to Qualcomm. They were 20 years ago, nobody ever heard of them. They got a small grant from this program, and they were one of the winners. But we were winners, too, not just the company, because now they employ 17,800 people operating in more than 30 countries worldwide and paid in taxes in 1 year, half of the cost of this entire program. And as the gentleman, the doctor who let's put this one back up. As the doctor who researched this program said to us in our hearing, because we have new members of our committee, 5 new members from the Republican side, and Senator Snowe and I both wanted to give them a chance to really understand this bill. And I'm proud to say that they all but one supported it coming out of committee when they really understood, and of course some of them had served in the House before and were familiar with this, but when they really understood that this has really been one of the most successful federal programs. And when it was reviewed by, I think it was Dr. Westman, gave us a review of the program, he said, let me tell you, Senator, if every single grant produces a company, you're running the wrong kind of program, because this is a high-risk effort, but it's a risk that over time has paid off tremendously to the taxpayer and will continue if it's continued to run in that fashion. So we've tightened up in this bill before us fraud and abuse statutes. We have put more oversight, which both Senator Snowe and I thought was important, but not to heavily burden the program, but just to make sure that our people in our departments, whether it's in defense or NIH or in the NASA program, are really utilizing this program to the extent and the spirit that Congress intends. So we've made some, we think, adjustments. Well, we think some perfections through some adjustments and modifications. We think we've made this program hopefully even stronger. But not every grant that is given will result in jobs, and it will be folded. But when it works, it really, really works, and we are so benefited as a nation. In fact, it was also testimony given before our committee that countries all over the world are trying to model some of their programs after this one, Mr. President, because they keep asking, how is it in America that you have such an innovative spirit? How is it that you start so many small businesses, and many of them, not all, succeed? What is it? And it's a number of things. It's our own nature and spirit, but it's because people have traditionally had a variety of accesses to capital, whether it's equity in their home or savings account or a banking system that's, for the most part, very honest and transparent. We've had some difficulties in just a few past years with some of the antics on Wall Street that caused people, some catch of breath, for that. But generally, compared to many other countries in the world, our people have access to those things, private property that they own. In many countries, people can't even own private property. You can't even get a clear title to property. So how do you borrow against it to start a business? You don't. And so it's many things that go into this miracle that we call the American economy. And this is a big part of it. Now, the federal government doesn't do it all, but I'm hoping that as people consider this debate, that every state in the Union will create a similar program. Some of them already have, and I'm going to try to provide to all the members here a list of what their individual states have done. Because if you think about it, and the large cities, whether it be New York or San Francisco or Detroit or Chicago, if every city government would think about setting aside a small portion of some of their research and development money to really push out the small businesses that aren't obvious to, sometimes to Wall Street in New York, or they're not obvious to Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, or they're not exactly located in just the Silicon Valley in California, but there are budding entrepreneurs and Americans with great ideas and great drive and great determination, and I'm really hoping that our government can be smarter. And I'd like this federal government to be as smart as it can possibly be, and I'm hoping that our state governments will look at this program as a model in potentially cities. Now, I can tell you one thing that I'm very excited about, and I haven't talked with them about it specifically to this, but I have spoken at some length to the Goldman Sachs executives, and I want to speak for a minute about a program that I'm very impressed with. It's not something that we're doing. It's something they're doing, but I think it's worth mentioning here. Goldman Sachs has decided to try to create 10,000 new small businesses in America. Not new small businesses. They're trying to grow 10,000 small businesses in America. They have a very strategic plan, and one that I'm watching very closely for a number of reasons. One, their model is scalable and other companies could potentially do it, and maybe we could model some kind of federal program if theirs is successful. Secondly, I'm watching it closely because one of the cities they chose for their pilot is the city of New Orleans, a city that I represent. My brother serves as mayor there now. He is very engaged with the leadership there because New Orleans has become a hotbed of innovation. And when I hear President Obama talking about out-competing and out-innovating, that's not just going to happen on Pennsylvania Avenue or right down on the intersection of M and Wisconsin and Georgetown. It's going to happen on Canal Street and Poydras Street in the lower 9th Ward, in New Orleans East and Gentilly, in towns like New Orleans and in places all over the world. And Goldman Sachs is saying, all right, Mr. Mayor, you get the city leadership, you get one of the community colleges to give the training. We jointly choose these entrepreneurs that have promised, they've already established, they've proven they can run a business and they can turn a profit, but they're just stagnating. They're smaller. They have the potential to be larger, but they're not. What is it that's causing them? Maybe lack of knowledge, lack of capital. So our Delgado Community College, and I'm very proud of Delgado, one of the finest community colleges in the country, stepped up and said, let us put them through the training. When they succeed and successfully exit the training, and I believe it's a 6-month to 9-month program, at the other end, Goldman Sachs gives them a check for X amount of money. I'm not sure if it's $25,000 or $100,000 or $200,000. I'll get that into the record so we can be clear, but they give them a check, so they've got the capital and the know-how, and then they've got the support of some of the nonprofits in the area to help them to grow. So think about that, Mr. President. If that is something that only one company is doing, think about what companies like Chevron, and I see them advertising, what they're doing to help small business. And I think about other companies, American Express with their, Plum Card, if I'm correct, talks about what they're doing. And I'm not promoting their companies, just as an example of programs that are out there supporting small business. The federal government can do its part as well. And we have an obligation. We can't do everything, but we most certainly can do our part, as many large companies around the country and the world are also thinking, what can they do to help grow small businesses in their areas? So that's just one example. And I want to we're going to watch the success of some of these programs in the private sector, and then we'll get some of their best ideas and potentially even strengthen our partnership. But this is a partnership between the federal government and private small businesses throughout our country. Let me just switch to a minute to say a couple of the organizations that are supporting this program. I don't see anyone on the floor at this time to speak, so let me just read into the record again some of the comments that we've received from very strong organizations. The Small Business Technology Council says, not only does this SBIR program spur technological innovation and entrepreneurship, it helps create high-tech jobs and does so without increasing the federal deficit. The National Small Business Association says the uncertain future of this program, and as I said, for 6 years it's been operating on short-term arrangements, 3 months here, 2 months there. Nope, for 6 years. Nobody's had any idea, either from the private sector, from some of the best labs, from our agencies, whether this program would be there next week. That is just unconscionable. That is why Senator Snowe and I have fought so hard to get this program authorized, and I see Senator Colburn on the floor, the senator from Oklahoma, and I want to thank him because of his good compromising efforts with us last Congress, we're going to be able to authorize this program for 8 years, as the senator will know, because he's been a strong advocate for good management and streamlining. Programs like this need certainty. The labs, our agencies need to know. We're looking out 2 years or 3 years for this new technology. There's a company out here we think could provide it to us. We need to know. So this 8-year authorization is important, and I thank him because some programs are only authorized for 4 years or 5 years, but we feel because we've been in limbo for 6 years, it would be a good idea to give that 8-year authorization. And just one more comment for 30 seconds, and I'll yield the floor. I want to read into the record the letters of support from a short list of companies, and as additional ones come in, we will read into the record their support. The Bay Area Innovation Alliance has sent their support, the Biodistrict of New Orleans, the Biotechnology Industrial Organization, Connect of California, the National Defense Industrial Association, the New England Innovation Alliance, the National Small Business Association, the National Venture Capital Association, the Small Business Association of New England, and I want to thank Senator Shaheen particularly for her support. Small Businesses of California, Small Business Technology Council, the V-Labs, Inc., American Chemical Society, and the United States Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few. So, Mr. President, let's keep this debate moving forward. We've had a number of amendments today. I see Senator Colburn on the floor, and I'll yield the floor at this time.
Mr. President.
The senator from Oklahoma.
Thank you. I thank the chairman for her kind words. It is necessary that we move this bill. I agree. And I'm thankful for she and the ranking member for the movement on some of the commitments they made to me on programs that don't work within the small business area. I have multiple amendments, but due to the deference of the chairwoman, I will not call those up. I am going to call up two, and I want to explain both of them as I call it. Amendment number 184. Everybody was real excited about the GAO report that we looked at the first third of the federal government in terms of all the duplication. Now, we don't know the extent of that duplication, and we're going to have to do some hard work to really winnow out a lot of savings, but there are a lot of savings there. People don't agree with me on my estimate, but nobody knows these programs better than I do. I've been studying them for 6 years. There's at least $100 billion where we can save American taxpayers and actually do a better job through redesigning the programs and eliminating the bureaucracies that make them less than effective. But one of the things we need to do to help the GAO is have the agencies report to OMB and to us on a yearly basis their programs. There's at least 2,100 programs that we know of in the federal government. When GAO goes to look at this, it's very difficult for them to ferret it all out. We only have one agency that publishes a list of their programs every year, and that's the Department of Education. You can get a book. It's this thick. It's this thick, and it lists all their programs. Well, that's going to make it much easier for GAO to do the next third. And so this is a simple amendment that requires every agent, every department of all the cabinets to fulfill to OMB within a short period of time what are all your programs, and also to report to us. And when that happens, that's going to make the GAO much more effective in how it brings to us this next group of duplications and overlap. So it's a straightforward amendment. My hope is that it can be accepted. And I'd like unanimous consent to call up amendment number 184, which is that amendment, and then make it pending.
Is there an objection?
There's no objection, but I'd like to ask the senator.
Senator from Louisiana.
I actually like this amendment 184. The senator has spoken with me about it previously, and I think it has some merit. What I'd like to suggest, and I thank the senator for being cooperative, if he could identify the other number, what I'd like to suggest is if we could get a Democratic amendment slotted in between these, we might call them up, the three of them, your two, and then a Democratic one. What is the other number, Senator? May I ask
the other amendment number? The other amendment number is number 220. It's the ethanol blenders credit.
Would the senator mind explaining that amendment, and then I'll make sure that it's cleared on our side, and we'll see what we can do.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Let me ask the chair then. I understand my First Amendment is up and pending. Is that correct?
Without objection. The clerk will report the amendment.
The senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Coburn, proposes an amendment numbered 184. At the end of Title V, add the following. section, requirement to identify and describe programs. A, each fiscal year, the head of each federal agency shall, 1, identify and describe every program administered by the agency.
That the amendment be considered as read. And I would now
Without objection.
like to discuss amendment number 220, and I guess it's your intention, Madam Chairman, that I defer in calling that amendment up.
Senator from Louisiana.
If the chair would, I may not have any objection. We're just trying to get that cleared on our side. If the senator could take this time now to explain it, and we can get back to him on that in just a short order.
All right. Amendment 220 is about making sure that we don't send good money after bad. When you go to the pump today to buy gasoline that is blended with ethanol, you pay as a taxpayer $1.78 as a taxpayer before you ever pay the $3.50 or 51 cents that we're paying today per gallon through incentives, tax credits, and rebates for ethanol and blending. This doesn't take away all the incentives on corn-based ethanol. What it says is because we already have a mandate that says 15 billion gallons of ethanol must be available and put through the system this year, no longer is there a necessity to have a blender's credit to the tune of $6 billion a year. So what this bill does two things. One is it takes away a incentive that's no longer needed because we've already mandated that the ethanol is going to be there. But it saves us $6 billion that we're paying to firms that are going to do the business no matter whether we pay it or not. So it is silly to continue to spend $6 billion of American taxpayer money, of which almost $3 billion of it will be borrowed money from either the Federal Reserve or from the Chinese, to incentivize something that's already mandated to happen. If you look at ethanol, it's two-thirds as efficient when blended as gasoline. It gets poorer mileage. And there's no savings in terms of carbon output or pollution. So what we're doing is we're incentivizing the use of a fuel that goes against what most people would like to do environmentally. It causes us to markedly increase the cost of food, which we're seeing in our country and around the world today, and we're incentivizing something that's going to happen anyway. And so it's a straightforward amendment. It says on the blender's tax credit, we're no longer going to give a credit for something you already have a market you're going to do without it. I know some will say that's a tax increase. But when we send $6 billion to a small segment of American industry that it's not going to impact their sales at all, then what's the purpose for having tax credits? If we use tax credits or tax expenditures to expand the economy, and it's not expanding the economy any when we're doing it, why would we continue to do it? As part of the President's Deficit Commission, we looked at that and we said, it's a no-brainer. There's no reason you would incent something that's already mandated by law that has to happen. And I know it's a controversial subject for a lot of our colleagues from farm states. But the fact is worldwide sophistication and food preference has markedly increased. This is creating an enormous pressure in taking food stocks out of the human food chain and putting it into the energy chain. So we're not stopping that. There's still all the other credits that are available, all the other incentives and all the other mandates. But what we're saying is we shouldn't spend $6 billion of American taxpayer money that we don't have. By the way, we do not have it, for something that they're going to do anyway. The other point I'd make is we're now a net exporter of ethanol. And a lot of people don't recognize that. Through November of 2010, we exported 397 million gallons of ethanol. That's almost a billion gallons since 2005. And not counting the blender's credit, but all the other credits, we're supporting that to the tune of about $1.20 a gallon. So we're subsidizing the consumption of ethanol in Europe to the tune of $1.20 a gallon. That makes no sense, when in fact we have significant energy needs ourselves. So my hope is that we'll consider this amendment, that we'll have a vote on it. I recognize it's going to be a close vote. My count's of 55, and I know we've got to get 60, but I want the 45 members of our body to go home and explain to their constituents why we're sending $6 billion to something that's going to happen anyway. It's a gift. That's all it is. And we don't have $6 billion to spend that way. And the other point I'd make, with the trouble that we're in, we're not going to get out of it by cutting $200 billion at a time or $300 billion. We're going to get out of it $6 billion at a time. Senator Begich and I found $1 billion in the FAA bill from earmarks that have been tied up, no money spent on them in 10 years. That's $1 billion savings. So if we do it $6 billion, $1 billion, $5 billion, $3 billion, $2 billion at a time, pretty soon we're going to add up and we're going to take some of the pressure off our country in terms of funding our debt. And the ultimate course has to be to convince the world that we get it, that we can't continue to borrow 40% of our expenditures in the world financial market and expect them to continue to loan us money. So it's a very straightforward amendment. My corn farmers in Oklahoma don't like it. I understand that. But it's about doing the right thing for our country, and now's the time to do it. And with that, I yield back the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate the cooperation of the senator from Oklahoma. We have been able to get his amendment number 184 pending added to the list of the 7 others, which gives us 8 pending amendments. None have been scheduled for a vote. But if he would allow me to just get back with him within the hour about whether I'll be able to clear. Senator Snowe is not on the floor, so we do need to consult with her to clear pending the number 220, and I will let him know within the hour. And Senator Shaheen has come down to the floor, and I really appreciate, let me just say, I know she will ask to be recognized, but I just want to say that she has been an outstanding member of our Small Business Committee, and as a former governor of New Hampshire, she most certainly was the job creator-in-chief and has brought a tremendous amount of expertise here to the Senate, and I'm very pleased to have her input on many of these bills that come out of our committee. Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to Senator Landrieu for those nice words and also for your leadership. I think we all are indebted to Senator Landrieu and Ranking Member Snowe for their leadership of the Small Business Committee and their leadership in bringing forward this legislation that's before us, the Small Business Innovation Research Program. They worked very hard in the last session of Congress to get this bill through the Senate, and it would have gotten passed then, except that the House adjourned before taking it up. So I'm thrilled that we're getting back to it this early in this session. I think most of us recognize that our future economic prosperity depends on whether this country continues to be a leader in science and innovation. We can't compete with India and China and other third world countries for low-wage manufacturing jobs. That's not our future. America's future is to be the global leader in science and technology. America makes the best, most innovative products and services, and that ingenuity and excellence is our chief economic strength as a nation. Now, as a former small business owner, I understand that it is the private sector and business and not government that's responsible for most of the job creation in this country. But I also understand that government has a critical role to play in fostering the positive business climate that we need in this country to remain competitive. And I believe there are a few things that we can do through policy to unleash the innovative spirit that is so alive and well throughout this country, and particularly in my home state of New Hampshire. One of those policy initiatives that we can do that is central to maintaining the creative dominance that's allowed us to lead the world in innovation is to enact a long-term reauthorization of the Small Business Innovation Research Program, or the SBIR program. SBIR is not just a typical grant program. Under the SBIR program, a small business is able to compete for research that federal agencies need to accomplish their missions, agencies like the Department of Defense. Small businesses employ about 1/3 of America's scientists and engineers and produce more patents than large businesses and universities. Yet, small business receives only about 4% of federal research and development dollars. SBIR ensures that small business gets a tiny fraction of the existing federal research dollars. In the last few weeks, I visited 3 New Hampshire companies that are doing cutting-edge research because of the SBIR program. Those 3 are Aerex in Somersworth, Spire Semiconductor in Hudson, and Active Shock in Manchester. The research that they've done under the SBIR program has allowed them to develop new products, to add customers, and to hire new workers. In other words, create jobs. All 3 have done essential research for the Department of Defense. Aerex, for example, has developed a state-of-the-art program to manufacture critical components for our nation's strategic missiles. This SBIR award positioned them perfectly to compete and win a contract to manufacture motors for use in military programs and to commercialize their research. And they've been able to expand from a workforce of 10 to currently 25 workers since they got that SBIR award, and they're continuing to grow. In Hanover, New Hampshire, we have a company called Creari that's really a poster child for the economic benefits that can be reaped through the SBIR program. Senator Landrieu has talked on the floor about Qualcomm in San Diego. Well, we should put Creari in Hanover, New Hampshire in that same category as Qualcomm, because Creari can trace more than $670 million in revenues that they've earned through because of the SBIR program. They've produced spin-offs and technology licensees for the commercialization of its SBIR projects. Many New Hampshire small businesses have successfully competed for SBIR funding in the 28 years since the program has been in existence. All across New Hampshire, small businesses that otherwise would not be able to compete for federal R&D funding have won competitive SBIR grants that advance technology and science and create good jobs, what we all want to happen right now in this economy. In just the last 2 years, New Hampshire firms have won 80 SBIR awards, and in fact, despite its small size, New Hampshire is ranked 22nd in the country for the total grants awarded through the Department of Defense under the SBIR program. Now, as a senator from New Hampshire, I take particular pride in the SBIR program because it was New Hampshire Senator Warren Rudman who, back in 1982, sponsored the Small Business Innovation Development Act, which established the SBIR program. SBIR has a proven track record, and its cost, as Chair Landrieu has said so often on the floor, is minimal. CBO estimates that implementing this bill would cost only $150 million over the next 5 years, and most of that minimal cost would have zero impact on the budget. That's because what this bill does is establish a 3-year pilot program that authorizes participating agencies to use the same dollars they set aside anyway for SBIR research to pay for administrative costs. That means we won't be using general operating funds to pay for administrative costs. And this bill imposes no mandates on business and imposes no cost on state and local governments. We need to address the long-term deficit and debt in this country. Our colleague from Oklahoma just spoke very eloquently to the need to do that and what it's going to take. And we all know that. But the best way we can start dealing with the debt and deficit is through more robust economic growth. Objecting to the SBIR program, as some have done, on the grounds that we should be focusing on the deficit alone, makes no sense at all, because the jobs created by the SBIR program will lower the deficit. Just like stopgap budgeting is bad for business, so are stopgap extensions of the SBIR program. Unfortunately, SBIR has been operating under short-term extensions, 10 of them, since 2008. Short-term extensions are a problem because, as I hear and I know we all hear regularly from businesses, they need certainty in planning. This bill reauthorizes the SBIR program for 8 years. It's a reasonable period of time, and it will allow small business and federal agencies to effectively plan their research. Now, Mr. President, I know we've heard from some quarters, and it's become fashionable on the part of some people to say that this country's best days are behind us. But I don't believe that for one moment. As I've traveled around New Hampshire, I see cutting-edge innovators who are creating jobs. We here in the Senate know what needs to be done. We just need the will to do it. So I urge all of our colleagues to join Senator Landrieu, Ranking Member Snowe, the Small Business Committee, in voting to reauthorize and strengthen the SBIR program. Thank you very much, and I yield the floor. And note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.